Most people think the reason they're not wealthy is because they don't make enough money. And to be fair, for some people, income absolutely is a major obstacle. Rising housing costs, healthcare expenses, inflation, and stagnant wage growth have made wealth building genuinely harder for many households. I used to believe income was the entire story too. But after years of studying investors, business owners, executives, and ordinary people who quietly built meaningful wealth over decades, I realized something uncomfortable. A high income alone is rarely enough to create lasting wealth. In fact, some of the highest earners I've ever met were also some of the least financially secure people behind the scenes. And at the same time, I've met teachers, engineers, accountants, and small business owners with relatively normal incomes who quietly built substantial net worths over long periods of time. That contradiction matters, because if high income automatically created financial independence, then every doctor, lawyer, athlete, and executive would eventually become wealthy. But we know that's not how real life works. A lot of people earn more money every year while still feeling financially trapped. And the hidden reason often has less to do with intelligence and more to do with behavior, psychology, habits, and most importantly, the difference between looking wealthy and actually becoming wealthy. Once you understand that distinction, your entire view of money starts to change. Honestly, it changed the way I think about investing, spending, and financial freedom entirely. Because wealth is usually not built through income alone. It's built through a combination of earning, ownership, patience, investing, and consistent financial behavior repeated over decades. And people who understand that early often end up with dramatically different financial outcomes later in life. What makes this conversation even more important right now is the environment we're living in. Housing affordability has become difficult in many major cities. Lifestyle expectations are higher than ever. Social media constantly pressures people to upgrade their lives publicly. Inflation quietly reduces purchasing power over time, and many professionals earning six figures still feel financial stress despite objectively strong incomes. That's not entirely accidental. Most people are taught how to earn. Far fewer are taught how to systematically keep, grow, and protect wealth over time. I remember speaking with a professional soccer player several years ago. From the outside, his life looked extremely successful. Luxury apartment in a major city, German car lease, frequent international vacations, high-end restaurants every weekend. And during one conversation, he admitted something that stayed with me. He said, "I make more money every year, but somehow I never feel ahead." That sentence perfectly captures what traps so many high earners. Because income can solve short-term financial problems. But if spending expands at the same pace as income, long-term financial progress often slows dramatically. And that's where lifestyle inflation becomes dangerous. You get a raise. You upgrade apartments. You finance a more expensive car. You normalize premium spending. And because your income supports it, the decisions feel reasonable in the moment. But every lifestyle upgrade creates recurring obligations. Real wealth behaves differently. Real wealth tends to create optionality, flexibility, reduced stress, the ability to make decisions without constant financial pressure. And that usually comes from consistently owning productive assets over time, not simply earning larger paychecks. One spends most of their income maintaining lifestyle status. The other systematically invests part of their income into productive assets. Over time, the difference compounds. Time. That's the reality many professionals discover later than expected. Average consumers tend to ask, "What can I afford monthly?" Long-term investors often ask, "What assets can this money buy?" That sounds simple, but psychologically it's completely different. Because consumer culture trains people to evaluate purchases emotionally. Cars become identity. Apartments become identity. Luxury brands become identity. Experiences become identity. People start spending money to maintain a version of themselves. But real wealth often looks surprisingly boring in the beginning. That's what almost nobody talks about. The early stages of wealth building are usually quiet and repetitive. Consistent investing, controlled spending, avoiding major financial mistakes, holding diversified investments through uncomfortable market cycles. People panic during downturns. They chase trends after prices already exploded. They compare themselves constantly. They overspend after raises. They underestimate uncertainty. Mortgage payments increase. Family expenses increase. Expectations increase. And suddenly the flexibility they expected never fully arrives. Bonuses declined. Layoffs spread across the industry. And suddenly the lifestyle became stressful instead of enjoyable. What improved financial outcomes wasn't simply finding ways to earn more money. It was restructuring financial systems, building larger emergency reserves, investing consistently into diversified assets, focusing more on net worth growth and less on visible consumption, retirement accounts, broad market index funds, cash reserves, international diversification. These systems can reduce fragility over time. That's when wealth starts becoming more than just a number. But getting there requires something many people struggle with: delayed gratification. And honestly, this may be one of the biggest hidden reasons many people fail to build substantial wealth over time. Not lack of intelligence, not lack of information, but difficulty consistently prioritizing future freedom over immediate consumption. One-click purchases, instant financing, buy now, pay later systems. The core principles themselves are relatively straightforward. Spend less than you earn. Invest consistently. Allow compounding time to work. Avoid catastrophic financial mistakes. Because status spending has no finish line. There will always be someone earning more, spending more, traveling more, displaying more. Wealth builders often optimize for independence. Consumers often optimize for appearance. And those priorities create very different long-term outcomes. One gradually builds assets. The other gradually builds obligations. I'm not advocating extreme frugality or deprivation. Money should improve quality of life. Experiences matter. Comfort matters. Generosity matters. So what does a healthier wealth building framework actually look like? Income comes in. A percentage automatically goes toward long-term investments. Long-term investors understand something important. Market volatility is normal. Economic cycles are normal. Corrections are normal. Temporary fear is normal. Think in decades, not months. This is where many people struggle psychologically. They want immediate visible results. But wealth often compounds invisibly for years before progress becomes dramatic. Because real wealth is often surprisingly invisible. It's the emergency reserve nobody sees. The retirement accounts nobody talks about. The diversified investment portfolio. The flexibility. The lower stress. The ability to walk away from unhealthy situations. That's what wealth really provides. Not just luxury. Control over your time and decisions. And ironically, many people spend aggressively trying to look financially successful while unintentionally delaying the financial freedom they actually want. Wealth creation is rarely explosive. It's usually gradual. Small decisions repeated consistently. Good habits compounded quietly. Emotional discipline maintained during uncertainty. And years later, people often call the result luck. But most of the time, it was behavior. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, it's this. A high income can absolutely help you build wealth. But income alone is rarely enough. Without investing, discipline, risk management, and intentional financial systems, even high earners can remain financially vulnerable for decades. And on the other side, ordinary people who consistently invest, manage risk carefully, avoid destructive financial behaviors, and give compounding enough time can often create remarkable long-term financial outcomes. This content is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. And if this conversation changed the way you think about money, investing, or financial independence, I'd genuinely be interested to hear which part resonated with you most.